I want to dramatically restyle the fluid confirmation message. Now, this is what it looks like out of the box. And this is a mock-up of what I want. Now, my problem with the original is that it overlays important actions and information. You can see the green banner across the top there. And yes, if I'm patient, it will close, but I don't want to wait. And I don't want to click the close button in the upper right corner. I want a simple, unobtrusive notification in the upper right corner, similar to Classic. So let's see if we can make it happen. Now, normally I would simply mock up my CSS in a browser and copy that CSS into Application Designer. But this one is a bit tricky. We have to style an element that is only visible for a matter of seconds. So that's the challenge. First, we have to trigger the notification. And second, we have to find it in the HTML. And third, we have to keep it visible so we can then style it. So let's dive in. First, let's change and save this transaction. So Alt-1, just so the notification will appear and quickly inspect. And wouldn't you know it, it's already gone. And you can see how that could be a challenge to style. But here I can see it. Let's just make sure. Let's dig in. It says PT confirm message. That's a good sign. Let's keep going, drill through. Oh, there it is. Perfect. Preferences saved. Those are the words that appeared across the top of the screen. So we found the confirmation message. It's here, but it's hidden. Now, there's a handful of reasons it might be hidden, and they all relate to CSS attributes. Usually, since it's still here in the HTML, that's the good news. We can style it. It's in the HTML, but it's hidden. So what we want to do, what's going to make it easier for us to style this, is if we can make it visible. Now, there are a handful of attributes that would cause it to be invisible. There's the display attribute. There's the visibility attribute. There is the opacity, meaning that it might actually be invisible, transparent. It's very common for a fade in or fade out effect to animate the opacity setting. Now, it also might be just hidden behind another element. That would be our Z index. So when the notification is visible, it might be in front, but to cause it to allow all the other features to work, they might actually just be moving the notification message behind, placing it behind the header that we see here. So let's just start working our way up through the HTML elements, looking on the right for those attributes. So first, this is the text. I don't think it's going to be in the text itself, the span, but we can just look really quickly. So we look on the right-hand side, we see all the selectors. We see PS-Style.F mode is the style sheet where these are coming from, the fluid style library. Oh, and then we get down to a selector. It's the asterisk, the wildcard selector. That's what we might call a reset style sheet. Once we get to this point, we know that it's no longer specific to that particular element. We can probably stop looking. In fact, if we go a little bit further, we usually run into the browser-specific style sheet. And once we hit that in the other inherited items, we can say, no, that's probably far enough. So let's keep working our way up then, looking for visibility, display, opacity, and Z index. And again, we've come down to the user agent style sheet. We've come to the basic reset style sheet. That's not it either. Back to the top again. Oh, now this is going to be a good one to keep in mind because one of the things that we saw in the mock-up is I actually want to change the colors as well so that it matches more my theme rather than just the PeopleTools 858 delivered theme. This is also good to note because once we find the container that has the colors, we're probably pretty close to the actual dimensions in the size container. And that's the other thing we want to do. We don't want it going spanning the entire width. We want to shrink it down so that it's just a smaller, less obtrusive. We still want people to notice it, so less obtrusive notification. We'll keep working our way up. Oh, this is a good sign. See the animation, it's labeled as fade in, so I'm suspecting that's probably animating the opacity setting. Keep looking down. Oh, that's perfect. So there is the visibility, the Z index, the opacity. You know, the only one they're missing there of the 4 attributes I mentioned, the display attribute. But they've hit the other 3, haven't they? So let's do this. Let's copy this CSS, and then we'll insert a new CSS rule, not to mock up the CSS here in the Attributes Explorer on the right, but rather just to paste that into the inspector style sheet, the temporary style sheet, in memory, just so we can change some of those settings so we can actually start mocking it up. Now, remember, this is just temporary. We're not going to, I'm going to change the opacity. I'm going to change the C index. I'm going to change the visibility, but only temporarily in the browser, just so we can style that notification message. Once we've got it styled, we're done with this. And we'll take our styled CSS, the important stuff, move that into Application Designer. Okay, so there's a selector here. It's the PSC confirmation animate. Now we can also see in the HTML that Oracle is also styling the PSC confirmation dash animate. I want to make sure that my selector is more specific than Oracle selector so that at least temporarily mine will apply here. Now, actually temporarily, it probably will apply because it's the inspector style sheet. So it's going to be the last CSS parsed. But let's just prepare because we're going to start writing CSS that we do want to persist, that we do want to override and apply instead of Oracle's delivered CSS. And looking through here to find a more specific selector, I'm going to look for parent class names, or even better, find an ID selector because an ID selector is the most specific selector. And I'll go to the source, paste in the ID selector. I want a child, the PSC confirmation dash animate. At this point, the left and the right don't really matter. The position, I want to inherit. So I'll let that stay with the Oracle delivered CSS. And this is what I want. I want to change the opacity to 1. So it's now fully visible. I want to set the Z index to, let's try 1, to make it in front of any other items. And then let's try the visibility with visible. That's perfect. Okay, now it's there on the screen so we can actually start styling the rest of it. So next thing we want to do is we want to figure out what's causing the dimensions. How do we shrink it? So back to the elements, and I'm going to start working in the right-hand side now, creating our rules. You know what? Let's go back here. Let's copy it. Let's make sure that we have this on our clipboard, the more specific selector, so we can ensure that anything rules we create are more specific than Oracle's rules. Back down to the confirmation. Now is this the one where the colors happen? No, there it is. That's the one with the colors. And I do not see any sizing attributes on this particular element. So let's work up one more element. And I see a left and a right. So those would be our positional elements. So let's do this. Let's create yet another style rule. This is kind of funny because this is actually the element we were just styling. And we want .psc underscore confirmation dash animate. And let's go with width. How about 300 px? A little bigger. What do you think? 350? The goal is to make this less obtrusive. We want it still big enough that people are going to see it, but not so big that it consumes the entire area so that we can't work anymore. We also want it big enough to hold any messages that might be rendered there. Now, what I found is because, I mean, what if the message is actually larger? We should test that. What if the message is longer than the space that we made available? What is the confirmation message? How's it going to behave? Let's see if we can test that out as well before we end. Okay, so width 350. I like that. Let's go with right 0. And you know what we need to do? We need to reset the left. Auto. That's good. That's good. Now, actually, I think I want to offset it a little bit, maybe a little bit, sort of like some margins around it. So let's do this. How about a right of, I don't know, 0.5 EM? An EM is a relative unit of measure relative to the current font height. So what I basically just asked for there was give me the spacing that's about half the size of a font, of a character, a letter, originally called the width of an M. So actually, let's keep left at auto, excuse me, and let's go with top 0.5 EM, or not. Let's keep the top where it's at for now. How about this? How about margin dash top 0.5 EM? That's good. I like that. You know what? We probably could have done the same thing here, gone with a margin dash right, just so we would have some consistency in the way that we're writing the CSS. But what I'm showing here is a lot of times in CSS, there's more than one way to accomplish the same task. And how about this? Let's round to the corners. So border dash radius, let's go with 0.5 EM as well. And that didn't do anything. Sometimes CSS is trial and error as well. So, oh, I know why. I know why. You know, what we've done here is we've positioned it based on the positioning container. But one of the things that we discovered earlier was that the colors are actually down one level, aren't they? So this is the element we've been styling at this point. Let's move down one level. Oh, there they are. Okay, so again, let's create a new style role. So we'll paste in our parent selector and then just type in PSC underscore confirmation dash area. So we can then override the border radius, border colors, and the background color. So border dash radius 0.5 EM. Oh, perfect. That's beautiful. And then we'll go with background color. And I've got the color over here. This is the background color. This is one of the colors that we use with our internal theme. And put our hashtag # in front of that. It's looking better. The green around the you might say salmon color is a little bit on the interesting side. Let's fix that really quick too. Oh, that's beautiful. I like it. Okay, so we have some CSS mocked up here. We can see it in the sources. Now the first section, we're not going to copy that. We're going to drop that. So I'm just going to put a comment in here for now. This is to make notification area visible. Okay. And then you know what I might do? I might actually copy this into the base style sheet just so we have it later for prototyping. So we don't have to go through all that effort again. But for now, you know what? I still need that notification area visible, don't I? So let's just keep it like that for now. Okay. Now I do have something I'm a little bit curious about. So before we actually move this into application designer to persist this, I'm kind of curious. What would happen if we had some really long text here that perhaps is longer than the width that we have available for our notification message? How is this notification container going to behave? For example, are we going to have word wrap and is it going to extend long? Is it going to become taller to fit all of that content? Let's find out. I'm just going to right click right on the words preference and save. So it takes us right there. And let's just try to create some really long text. This is some really long text that should wrap around a bit and a bit more. You know, when you run out of things to say when you're typing into, say, some sort of a test, I mean, it's always appropriate to say hello world, it seems like, doesn't it? And why don't we just keep the same text that was there as well? Preferences saved. Woo-hoo. All right, let's try it. Let's see what happens. Oh, that's fantastic. Do you see how the container actually became taller? So what we've done is we've shrunk the width of the container to make it less obtrusive. We've moved it a little bit. So if there are any action buttons up here or anything, we can continue working within the transaction. But that notification is still there. It's still going to contain all of the information that PeopleSoft might want to share with us, but it's not in the way. All right, let's see if we can persist this CSS. So I'm going to go back to the sources now, the source that we mocked up. And in the application designer, I'm going to create a new freeform substyle sheet. So style sheet, freeform substyle sheet, and then I'm going to paste this CSS here. And like I said, let's comment out the visibility because we don't want that thing visible all the time, just for mocking up. This is perfect. Let's see, let's give this a name. How about JSM override FF? FF for freeform. I'm calling this override because this is a style sheet that I'm starting to build up now that's going to be my override CSS style sheet. And that's something that we've talked about in other sound bites as well. What's the best way to brand it, or what's the fastest way to brand a PeopleSoft system? Using the attribute-based branding framework. So in a new window, because I'm actually kind of afraid, I like the CSS that I have here. And if I refresh this, it's gone. So in a new window, let's keep this one here so we can do our refreshes here. And in yet another new window, let's go to the branding module. So People Tools, Portal, branding. Now, if you're using the attribute-based branding module, and of course you want to avoid any sort of customizations, you would create your own branding theme. Now, in the interest of time here, I'm just going to use the Oracle delivered theme and I'm going to, yes, modify it here in place. So under Assemble Themes, the current theme that we're using is the default theme Fluid. I'm going to scroll to the bottom of the Assemble Themes and we see for the Fluid section, we see the Global Override Style Sheet. I'm going to insert my new style sheet, JSM Override FF. And I'll press the Save button. There's the old notification message. Let's see what happens. So let's refresh. And I'll press the Alt-1 for the save. Oh, isn't that fantastic? Do you have ideas for improving the PeopleSoft user interface? If so, share your ideas in the comments below. We love to hear about your projects. At JSM Pros, we teach people tools and web development concepts like this every week. Be sure to check out our website to see what we're offering next. Or here's an idea: subscribe to our LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter feeds to receive updates every time we post a course. Or do you have a team that wants to learn more? Give us a call and let's get something on the schedule. Now, before we go, I have a question for you. Do you have a topic you'd like us to cover in a future soundbite? If so, let us know by sharing your idea at soundbites.jsmpros.com. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more content. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.